So today on Westbrook TV, we're changing gears a little bit. We're going to switch to some true crime. And nothing gets any closer to my backyard than this next case. Because today we're talking about the disappearance of 6-year-old Kathleen Kathy Shea from right here in my hometown of Tyrone, Pennsylvania. So let's get into it. So Kathy Shea was born on one of my favorite days, Groundhog Day, the repeat day. One of my absolute favorite movies. And we're actually real close to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, of course, where Groundhog Day is celebrated. Love it. But Kathy was born on February 2nd of 1959. She was the eldest of 3 children. She was born to parents Mary Alice Harpster and Jim Shea. Both of her parents were employed at the local paper mill. Her father was actually a foreman there. And I believe her mother stopped working there once she started having children. So I would suppose when Kathy was born, her mom became a stay-at-home mother, which was also common at that time. But they both worked at the paper mill, and most of these small towns like Tyrone was established off of resources like the paper mill and the railroad. It's big in Pennsylvania, so this town is obviously no different. But back on March 18th of 1965, 6-year-old Kathy Shea went missing from on her way to school from her home on West 14th Street, which was literally 4 blocks from Adams School on Adams Avenue. Good place to put it. I'm short. Anyways. But she actually was just 4 blocks away when she left for school and was tracked down to as little as a block away from school. And she just simply disappeared. So let's get into the backstory. So Kathy was described as being a happy child, an energetic child. She was actually, remember at the time of this case, she was 6 years old. So I remember what I was like at 6, like a handful. So she was 6 years old, and she was actually, her birthday was on February 2nd, as I had said, and because she had gone to have her tonsils removed, now that's something I never had to have happen, luckily. I'm sure some of you may know, but apparently it takes several weeks to heal and be cleared to go back to school. So Kathy had missed school for several weeks, and this was going to be her first day back on March 18th. But because she was in the hospital having her tonsils removed, she actually missed her birthday, so they had planned a sleepover, and that sleepover was going to happen on the 19th of March, the very next day, but it never happened. So on the morning of March 18th of 1965, Kathy was excited. She was excited to go back to school, being off for all that time, and she was also excited because of the sleepover the next day. So that afternoon, and again, at that time when you were in kindergarten, the way they usually did things was there was a morning and an afternoon class, and you attended either or. And she actually had attended afternoon classes. So she was super excited to go. Her mother, as I said, was a stay-at-home mom at that point, and she was making breakfast for the kids or afternoon lunches after breakfast. It's afternoon. Get your story straight, Mike. But she had made lunch for all the kids, and Kathy was excited, got her stuff together, went out to leave for school. She was excited to walk, and we'll talk more about that because I'm actually going to I'm actually going to take you for the same walk that Kathy did. But she was getting ready to walk to school. She had made it to the driveway of the house. Her father had just pulled in from lunch break. Now, as I said, he had worked at our local paper mill, and it's literally, 8 to 10 blocks from where Kathy's house is. So a lot of times he would come home for lunch. And her father had pulled into the driveway just as Kathy was leaving, and actually had offered her to ride to school, a lot quicker. And Kathy said, no, I want to walk. She was excited to walk. She was just happy to be outside, I'm sure, after healing from the tonsil removal. So she wanted to walk. So that afternoon, and remember, this is March in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure it was cold. I'm sure there was snow. She left that afternoon. She was wearing red tights, a brown jumper, a beige coat with a big fur collar, a brown hat, some red gloves, and some rubber boots, bright yellow rubber boots. Now, generally when she went to school and walked to school, which was completely normal at that time, she would walk with a friend. Now, that friend that morning or that afternoon decided that she was not going to walk the same way as Kathy, just simply because she had actually had a bully. Believe it or not, even then there was bullies. And it was a bully crossing guard that gave her a hard time the day before, so she didn't want to walk that way. So Kathy ended up walking on her own. Now, I want to be completely clear, before I continue. The crossing guards, now I know I showed an image of an adult, but at that time it was generally the upperclassmen. And in this instance, it would have been 5th and 6th grade students that were posted at crossings. So it was not an adult that was bullying her friend. It was actually an upperclassman that was doing so. Now, again, nobody should do that crap. It's turned into a big problem now today too. But it was not an adult, and I want to be clear about that. But nevertheless, she walked a different way, and that's why Kathy was alone that day. And in hindsight, that could have changed everything. Maybe this wouldn't be a video now, But things changed. Now we're aware of stranger danger. We know what to tell our kids. But that wasn't common. Abductions didn't start picking up until a little later, on a bigger scale. So, but nonetheless, that was all the information at that time. As far as Kathy's mother knew, she was at school, and Dad knew she was at school. And it actually wasn't until after 4:30 in the evening that, Kathy's mom, when she didn't get home, she started to really worry. At first it wasn't a big thing because Kathy stayed after school sometimes or had walked to her friends. But it wasn't until 4:30 that she actually called the school and spoke with the teacher. Now, the teacher, she didn't see, and at that time things were different. Listen, there wasn't, when you didn't show up for school, it's not like today, there was a phone call or a text, or, there wasn't cell phones. There wasn't, things were different, a lot different. So, that wasn't the normal processes. And in the teacher's defense, she pretty much figured that, that she still hadn't recovered from the tonsils. So to her, it wasn't weird that she wasn't there. She had been gone for several weeks, as I had said. So it wasn't until after 4:30 that there was even a worry. And then, The rest of this information was found out during the investigation about her disappearance and her whereabouts, right before the last known location anyways. And it ended up being one of the biggest manhunts in the town's history. Besides, a little later, back in June of '96, Miss Melody Curtis, and I'll definitely do a video on Melody. But besides Melody missing in '96, this was absolutely the biggest manhunt, quote unquote, in the history. Even junior and seniors in high school were released early from school so they could help with the hunt. And absolutely everything was searched. I mean, this place was turned upside down. Every alley, every dumpster, every basement in all the homes during her path. I mean, they spoke to everyone in every house along her path to school. And just absolutely everything was searched, and to no avail. After some investigation and speaking to a lot of the residents along the path, one of the residents at the beginning of Adams Avenue, which is literally a block from the school, this resident actually knew the family and knew Kathy, and she stalked Kathy and talked to her real briefly, said that Kathy was super excited about being back at school and that was feeling good after her surgery and was just happy to be back and was in great spirits. And she continued to walk, and that was the last person to see Kathy. Now, during the manhunt, bloodhounds actually tracked her scent to Garfield Street, which is literally a half a block from there, and then the scent just ceased, which made them believe that at that point she was picked up in a car, and from there, not sure. All right, so I'm standing on the corner of West 14th Street where Kathy had lived. I'm not going to show the actual house. I want to have some respect for the people that live there now. But she would have left from this block, and she would walk down over this hill. And again, I want to say it was definitely a different time, and I know a lot of you are going to say, why was a 6-year-old girl walking by herself? Well, everybody did then. It was truly a different time. Your neighbors, and it's still today, you couldn't walk from one end of this town to the other without somebody seeing you that knew you. So, I mean, that's the nice part about a close-knit community like this. But as I had said before, after Kathy was found missing, and this would be about 5 p.m., they searched the school. They went classroom to classroom, and all the obvious things. And once that was came to no end, and Kathy still was not found, obviously the police were called. Now, I told you the depths that got into with the FBI being called. Flip you around so you can see how beautiful this is. It's a beautiful little area, a nice little walk. Anyhow, the FBI, after speaking to a lot of the residents and people in the surrounding area, they found out that one of her classmates, Beth, and she was a upperclassman. She must have been older because she went to school all day, and she was actually leaving her house at lunchtime to go back to school. Now, like I said, it was a different time. So, for a kid to leave school and go home for lunch was pretty much a normal thing to happen at that time. They were allowed to do so, and of course you can't do that today. But they she had said that when she was headed back, she seen a car kind of creeping around, being creepy, and she described the guy and what he. Now, this is this is a picture of that sketch, and it's pretty scary. And a lot of them were scary back then. They all kind of look the same, you know. If you throw some glasses on this guy, it's D.B. Cooper, you know what I mean? But this right here, this block right here, there would have been a crossing guard standing here. And again, even today, the kids still walk this path, come down here. Now, no crossing guards today. That's because most of them are high school students. But the crossing guards would have been upperclassmen. So today, if there is crossing guards, they're up by the school, and it's normally adults. But one of those classmen or cross guards had mentioned that months actually before she was abducted, one of the crossing guards said that a gentleman had come up to him and asked for Kathy specifically, which I think is really strange. Asked for her specifically, and turned out that Kathy was actually about a block away, and he pointed her out. The gentleman got back in his car and just left, which is super strange. Definitely could have been somebody that researched her, but it would have, jeez, I mean, I don't even know how, other than census at that time, that you would even know. So it makes me think maybe it was somebody that knew her. Now, super small town, so obviously there's a lot of conspiracies as to, you know, what went down. Some people think that Kathy's father had something to do with it, and it was mentioned that he had access to an incinerator at the paper mill. I want to be completely clear. Both parents were rolled out pretty quickly. They had absolutely nothing to do with this, and both of those parents have passed. There are some other family members still alive and still in the area, but it was determined nobody in her direct family had anything to do with it, and it's considered a random abduction, and still today that's what it's considered. Now, the FBI actually had put out flyers because, you know, after she disappeared, weeks turned into months, into years, and years later the FBI put out a flyer just in case, you know, Kathy was taken and, you know, maybe enrolled into a different school, and it was distributed across all 50 states to no end, to no information being found from that point. And the investigation is still open today. And Kathy would be 65 going on 66, and this is a picture of what Kathy would look like, at least the last rendition of Kathy that I know of. So now we're here on Garfield Street, and this would have been the last location that Kathy was traced to, and then just disappeared. So they think, you know, this is where she would have been picked up. The sad part about that, that's the school right there. So literally half a block away. However, you know, if you went up this way to the stop sign and made a left, went a couple blocks, you could hit 453, which you could just go up over the mountain and disappear into the sticks. You'd be gone in no time flat. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say what really transpired, and it's hard to say whether Kathy is still with us or if she was murdered. You know, there's no evidence, but somebody knows. I mean, what happened to Kathy? And if you do, you can contact the Pennsylvania State Police, and here's a number. Leave an anonymous tip, and maybe, just maybe, we could get this case solved after all this time. And it's such a sad story. However, you know, Kathy's disappearance, along with a lot of other children over the years after that, really brought us to where we're at today, and knowing the dangers that our children face on a daily and how to protect them. And that's the important part. So let me get you back around here so you can see we made it to school. Now, today this is a Greystone Court, which is a retirement village. But just from looking at it, you can tell it was a school. The sidewalk here, obviously, probably where the driveway used to be. The buses pull in to drop off. Even the flag's still there. You know, I don't know if I don't think that's the original flag. It may be, but, or flagpole. But the rest of the building has changed, and there's been added buildings in the back. But I would love to have right here in this corner, because that's the corner Kathy was hoping to make it to, and being that she didn't, and she still has a lot of family in the area, this was never resolved. So I think they deserve something, and I would have to see a statue right here, to see a statue of Kathy, and maybe a little about her story, and if at the very least, at least a statue, to just solidify she made it. You know, she made it in our hearts. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to check into it and see if I can make that happen. So to be clear, I'm not 100% sure that the path we walked was the exact way that Kathy walked. There's very little information, I'm sure, in the case file. Somewhere they have listed the exact route, but it was difficult to find anything exactly. So I took you the way that made the most sense to me, with the surroundings and where she lived and proximity to the school. But after you hit the bottom of the hill, she could have went, you know, half a block or a block in either direction. But I'm pretty sure, I mean, straight line seems smartest to me. But in any case, you've seen how fast we made that walk. I mean, literally minutes down over the hill. So it's just a reminder to stay diligent. Make sure you know your surroundings and who's around you. Just because you're only blocks away doesn't mean you're 100% safe. So make sure you're aware of what's around you and who's around you, and keep your eyes open. You know, keep your eyes open and be watching so that we can continue to make sure that our children stay safe. So thanks, guys, for joining me on another adventure, and I will be back with you again soon. If you like my content and you want to know when the new stuff drops, hit the notification bell, you know, give me a like and a subscribe. It will really help me in my goals. I appreciate you guys. Love you. See you on the flip.